And Marilyn is the Senior Director of the Faculty and Staff Assistance Program with Emory's Wellness Center. And so Dr. Marilyn Hazzard Lineberger received her Ph.D. in clinical psychology from the University of Georgia. Dr. Lineberger has conducted an independent consulting business in private practice since 1980 and is currently the Senior Director of the Emory Faculty Staff Assistance Program, which serves Emory University in risk management services for Emory Healthcare. Dr. Lineberger is also president of Lineberger Consulting Services Incorporated. So we are so excited for her to be here today, and I'm going to let her get started. You're muted, Marilyn.
That's better. Now I can say good afternoon so that everyone can hear me. And it is such a pleasure to provide some information pertaining to factors influencing and strategies to enhance employee health and wellness. And I want to thank Katie and Livable Buckhead for the invitation to join you today on this very important panel. This is such an important topic that we are exploring today. And some of you may ask the question, why is this topic so important? Well, I would like to just share with you a number of factors that influence employee health and well-being at this time. Many of these factors you have lived with for an extended period of time, such as for the past couple of years. So let's take a closer look at these particular factors. Well, we can all relate to what is termed the effects of COVID-19 and its pandemic. Can you reflect back on February 2020, what you were doing about the 1st of February as you heard the term pandemic? Did you envision what was about to happen in your life when you heard about COVID-19? Well, many of us did not have an idea as to how extensive this journey would be. As a matter of fact, when I left my office at Emory in March of 2020, I said to a few of my coworkers, I'll see you in about 2 weeks. Well, 2+ years later, we are still struggling with the effects of COVID-19. This pandemic had many influencing factors, such as there were organizational changes. Many work sites moved to hybrid models for work and remote work, looking at classifying what would be essential work to provide on site versus other types of work arrangements. Many organizations looked at resources and also how to manage remote teams. So there were numerous changes that organizations had never had to anticipate in its history. But also there were things that we as individuals in organizations had to anticipate as well. There were lifestyle changes that impacted our work. For those of you who may have children, you not only managed working from the home environment, but you also had to become teachers in the home environment for your children. There were lifestyle changes where we had concerns about even going to the grocery store. So many things that had become natural for us and given for us to do in any daily routine, all of a sudden had a lot of impact on what we did in our day-to-day routines. These combined factors brought to the workplace as well behavioral and physical health concerns. For example, in many organizations that I worked with, I heard people started to ask questions about not only their physical health and safety, but how would the organization protect them from a safety standpoint. And anxieties grew when people had to go on site because they didn't know what to expect and whether sometimes social distancing would be respected and any types of concerns about wearing masks. This also led to what we are experiencing as the Great Resignations. And we have staggering numbers in this regard. And many people, as they were going through the past 2 years, realized with their life changes that they could probably do some things differently related to their work. So we have statistics indicating that in December, there were like 4.3 million resignations in this country. And then in March, we reached even new numbers for 4.5 million resignations. And we started to see so many companies then struggle with recruitment and with retention. It then became labeled as now a job seekers market, where workers are looking at how to implement different lifestyles and changes in the places where they work. Another influencing factor relates to pre-existing mental and behavioral health issues. COVID did not bring on every issue of concern for individuals because there were many people who already experienced challenges that were exacerbated as they went through the COVID-19 pandemic. These factors then started to increase concerns about mental health in general. Over the past years, I have had so many employees from different organizations raise questions about really my mental health, my well-being. Should I be worried that I'm anxious about going to the grocery store? Should I be anxious about now driving since I have not driven so frequently in the past? How about going to the gym, or how about going out to dinner? Some things that I previously did with comfort, now I have concerns. Are these challenges for me on the mental health spectrum? And we have also seen that mental health concerns are being reported and discussed in the workplace. I have actually had leaders to call me and say, Marilyn, you know what? I've never had to talk about these types of topics before in the workplace. Yes, I've had employees to come to me and say, you know, I've had a couple of bad days. I'm not quite myself, but now I have employees who share more details about feeling depressed, feeling stressed, or having trauma. So these may be things that leaders are not accustomed to talking about in the work environment. It has now culminated to what we term a mental health crisis. And this terminology is being utilized as we see more and more people seeking strategies for their well-being in every dimension of wellness. And in this regard, we have concerns about holistic health and well-being. And on the dimensions of wellness, people are concerned about every aspect: occupational wellness, intellectual and cognitive wellness, social wellness, etc. So it doesn't stop just with the area of emotional and behavioral well-being, but people are striving for wellness in every dimension. And I imagine, as I have perused through this list of various factors influencing employee health and well-being, you probably thought about a number of other factors emerging at this time. This list of factors could go on. For example, there may be some of you saying, okay, Marilyn, what about inflation? What about parents who can't find baby formula? What about the cost of gas? What about housing? What about food insecurity? Yes, the list is pretty exhaustive. And that is why it is so important to examine strategies for helping employees to stay well and healthy and performing at their best. But a key question may be, is there such thing as a new normal? for employees? Well, some of the things that we hear under the auspices of this new normal relate to the desire for flexibility if needed. I mean, there are now broader options for remote work. These are now occasions where a person can live in Atlanta, Georgia, but work in California. And so with 2 years of a lot of flexibility, the new normal for many employees is to seek out greater flexibility and more options for either a hybrid model or remote work. There is also the increased new normal around changed lifestyles. For some people who had to experiment with new lifestyles during the pandemic, now they're saying, you know what, this lifestyle really did work for me. I give the example of some parents decided that, you know, we may only need one person to work in our household and we can actually do homeschooling. That is an existing lifestyle that could change on an ongoing basis. And then next, this new normal really encompasses strides for work-life balance, or what we are now referring to as the integration of wellness at work. It is so hard to envision true balance with work and life. And that is why sometimes when we can offer wellness things at work, that integration can be highly important and significant. There is this new normal, as indicated earlier, that it is a job seekers market, and there are challenges filling some very precious job openings at this time. We are also hearing employees state that they have a strong desire for appreciation and value, and many employees would be willing to leave their current organization if they sense there is a lack of appreciation and value. And also, the new normal is calling for emphasis on diversity, equity, and inclusion, especially as we have experienced a lot of unrest in our society and concerns about racial unrest. And we also hear employees looking for positive organizational cultures. So, what strategies can be utilized to enhance employee health and wellness? Here are some I would like to share with you. And there are many companies already implementing some of the things that I will discuss at this time. There is value to offering wellness programs at work. And I have delineated here some types of wellness programs that may be advantageous. For example, at Emory, we implemented 2 programs several years ago, way before the pandemic. One is a Move More challenge that is offered on an annual basis, and teams gather and compete with each other so that they can get the highest steps on a given day. And there is that healthy competition about who's going to get 10,000 steps a day, 15,000, 13,000. And the goal is to have the Move More competition for a 6-week time period, but for it to be extended as a regular part of one's life. We also have an annual emotional well-being campaign called Refresh from Stress. This is a 30-day campaign where each week there is a different focus on some way to alleviate or decrease stress. For example, one of the first weeks is to look at ways in which you can engage in self-care and how you can enhance your self-care routine. A second week talks about gratitude and being able to express gratitude to colleagues as well as to self. There can also be the implementation of various workshops, and I give a few examples here. One of the primary requested workshops that we have now relate to managing burnout and building resistance. There are companies now providing meditation spaces so that employees can just go have a quiet moment, a moment just to refresh, regroup, concentrate, and bring their bearings back to the forefront. Also, there may be multiple opportunities to market and promote employee assistance programs. And these programs, commonly referred to as EAPs, will offer a barrage of different services, including short-term individual, couples, and family counseling, nutrition coaching, all types of executive coaching, and even some organizational development strategies to help with team cohesiveness. So these are some things that can focus on self-care and well-being from more of an individual level. But we can also have strategies to enhance team care. Some of these are very simple. For example, when you're meeting with your team, there can just be a team check-in. These can be a regular, just 10 minutes to say, how is everybody doing? Is everybody faring well? How's it going for your day? And this is a way to express appreciation and value. We have found it to also be helpful to implement what is termed listening sessions. We, across the Emory campus, implement these sessions using professional facilitation. And there are topics that can be arranged to talk about in these listening sessions. For example, one topic may relate to how do we resolve conflict as a team. There can also be offering team-oriented workshops to include building cohesive team or even learning each other's work style. And this is a way to get to know each other better in terms of what you value in the workplace and your style for interacting and engaging with others. On the team level, it may also be important to encourage team support and to actually encourage that employees take a purposeful pause. And this is an intentional pause where you have a moment to just stop and reflect on what you're doing and why you are doing it. It's a healthy type of pause. And also for team care, it may be considered to provide social engagement opportunities that are offered in a healthy and safe format. I also like to share just some strategies that leaders can consider. And these are sometimes easy to implement, but can be a bit taxing as well. In this respect, it is important to respect and appreciate differences. There will be people, for example, ready to come back to the work environment, but on the other hand, there will be people who would really rather stay at home. And so we will have people all in between every point on this spectrum. It is important to respect and hear and appreciate these differences. Also, it is very important to listen to employees and their desires about career development, to assist with remote work arrangements and provide flexibility when possible. Build relationships and mentor employees. Do a bit of coaching to hear about their aspirations. We have also implemented walk-in meetings, and that's a good way to keep people moving and to get some fresh air and to just engage and focus on nature while also having a productive meeting. Some more things for leaders to consider: support those wellness activities offered in the work environment. And the next one is very important: be a role model. Model health and wellness. Show that you appreciate holistic health. Facilitate referrals to your EAP or to HR, wherever those wellness resources may be. Practice emotional intelligence. be transparent in communications, and resolve conflicts readily when they occur. And also seek and utilize employee feedback when appropriate, and also seek coaching and support for yourself as a leader. And I am sure as I have delineated these various strategies, you have thought about so many other strategies that may be helpful, or you may just be reflecting on all that I have shared thus far. This is that opportunity to just pause for a moment, observe how you're thinking about what has been presented, and to reflect upon this information. Because the bottom line and the summary is we are all seeking ways in which to enhance our health and well-being. These are lessons that we have learned that we surely want to continue far beyond a pandemic. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Marilyn. That was great. We're going to move on, as we have a lot more to go through, into our next panelist, Lex Goodwin. She is a culture development leader with Insight Global's Compass. And Compass is the culture and leadership division of Insight Global, which helps organizations get connected to each other and to their purpose so they can solve problems together. Lex lives in Phoenix, Arizona, and started with Compass back in January after serving as a leader for Insight Global's National Account Division for almost 9 years. Take it away. You're muted.
Okay, there we go.
Perfect.
I apologize about that. Thank you so much, Katie. I really appreciate the introduction. And hi, everyone. My name is Lex Goodwin, like Katie mentioned. And yes, I'm a culture development leader over at Compass. And I am here today to teach you all about the power that your culture has within your organization and why connection is really at the heart of it all, and how to create meaningful connection across your teams and organizations, especially in this crazy virtual world that we're now living in. So Compass was actually born from the Insight Global turnaround story. Insight Global is one of the largest IT service companies in the nation and is actually headquartered right in your neck of the woods over in Dunwoody. So some of you may be pretty familiar, but Insight Global was a company that was once known for its rich culture, but became completely broken back in 2017. We have been undergoing a culture transformation ever since and have completely transformed as a company. We believe so deeply in how we accomplish this that we decided to bring Compass to the outside world. So what is Compass? Compass is a culture consulting and leadership development firm who we firmly believe that great culture can change the world and help people live more fulfilled lives, both in and out of the workplace. So we're going to start with a definition to really understand what culture is, and then we're going to progress and get into how culture changes. So what culture is? Culture is what a group has learned about how to fit in and how to be successful. So it's what a group has really learned about the ways in which they fit in, how they jive with other people on their team within the group, and then how we approach the work that we actually do that is ultimately going to influence the way in which we think, behave, and interact with others. So to put it a little bit more simply, over time in a group, based on what that group has learned and how they react to what they've learned, is going to form the norms, values, and beliefs. This is really what the culture of a group is. So now how culture changes. We at Compass, we've actually had the pleasure of partnering with two pioneers of organizational culture. Their names are Peter and Edgar Schein. I don't know if anyone is familiar. They're a father-son duo, and Edgar Schein is the spryest 94-year-old man you've ever met. And he actually consults with us. And what we've really come to know is that any culture change that's happened has really followed a version of this timeline. So here's what you need to know in order to actually understand how culture can change. You start with your new way of doing. This is something within your culture that you're trying to create or trying to change. It has to happen over a period of time. We have to like it, and it has to get us better results. Because if not, we're just going to go back to the old way of doing. Culture only sustainably changes when how we do what we do improves the actual results that we get. Because like I said, if it's not going to get us results, we're going to go back to that old way. We've got metrics to hit. We've got business to attend to. So it has to get us better results. But for most of us, including myself, creating those new ways of doing is not easy. And so we can't just jump to those new ways. So in order to get new ways of doing, here's what you're going to need. First and foremost, you start with your current ways of doing. And we start with safety and connection. I'm going to get into an exercise after this that's really going to go through how you can create safety and connection in your organization. But that's always where we start. Then for education, people need to know why they need to change, what's changing, and even how to change. Then leadership support and buy-in. Leaders will need to support the change. And ultimately, as we approach the change, as we approach that new way of doing, we're really going to need to understand the system and structures that might be getting in our way and might be holding us back. Because if we change those system and structures, we might just be able to find new ways of doing at scale. So connection, going back to that start of creating safety and connection, why does connection matter? As human beings, we're wired for connection. We have to create intentional connection and relationships within the groups that we work with, because relationships really are the key to growth, especially in a virtual world. So to explain a little bit further, when you have meaningful connection, what is created and why it matters, it makes the work that we're doing so much more meaningful, and it creates an energy towards a purpose that we're trying to create as a group. Super powerful. It creates open, honest, and transparent conversations so we could solve hard problems. If people feel held back, that they can't be open and honest about what they think or what their opinion is, it makes it very, very difficult to actually be innovative and creative and solve hard problems. It really helps establish trust through shared vulnerability. Through the communication exercise that I'll teach you that really elicits vulnerability, this automatically establishes trust between individuals. It improves the quality and quantity of communication. It just completely goes up. And then it puts all of the diverse strengths, experience, and perspectives from all the individuals on the team to really create a supercharge towards those results that we're trying to get, those new results. So going back to connection, there's kind of three parts here. So yes, it's absolutely imperative that you connect to each other as individuals. And then you want to connect back to that greater purpose of the organization. What are we trying to do? Where are we trying to go? And what is that result that we're trying to achieve? So I have a little success story to share with you. I'm sure many of you are familiar with the company ExxonMobil. ExxonMobil has oil rigs all over the world, and their oil rigs were hitting an extremely high amount of injuries and casualties at a certain time. So the leader of these oil rigs was trying to think and be creative of how he can, combat this and create new ways. So he actually had someone come in and say, you know what, I bet you if the workers on the oil rigs were connected, we'd probably start to solve some of these problems. So given his employees, he was probably a little bit hesitant, but he said, you know what, it's worth a try. So they actually hired this woman. She was a Ph.D. from Iran. She came and she lived on the oil rigs with these men. And every night at the end of their shift, she would sit them in a circle and she would ask them questions that really provoked them to share their feelings and to share vulnerabilities, and allowed these men to get an understanding of each other and to really get known to one another. So from that, everyone felt more comfortable to be honest and open. They were able to get known and understanding of one another. And they were also then able to really surface what were some of the issues, why were more injuries happening, and create new ways to kind of stop this and to create more new safety measures. So from this, it was so powerful. This was something that they started to do across all of the oil rigs. And from this power of connection, this exercise they did, they saw the casualties and injuries decline by 84% across all oil rigs. So I just think that that's so profound. We love a story like this because it really illustrates the power of how powerful connection can be as people and what it means to come together to really solve hard problems. So before I get into the how to really do this style of communication, this exercise, I want to leave you all with a quote from the great Abe Lincoln. He said, "I don't like that man. I must get to know him better." And something that we really notice when we create this style of communication that I'm going to show you is that it really goes deeper. It allows people to go deeper than they normally would in ways to really help us understand each other better. So when we really understand the why people are the way that they are, and why they're doing the things they're doing, why they act a certain way, it really makes it harder for us not to like them. We develop empathy, we develop care, and we develop support for one another. So how can you all do that in your workplace? Whether you are virtual, hybrid, in person, this is an amazing exercise that we call a compass exercise. I actually have the pleasure of facilitating these on a weekly basis. So if anyone is looking for external help or support in this area, I know that Katie will share our contact info. Please feel free to reach out and let me know. But this is what we call a compass session. And what this is you sit in a circular fashion and you go around and you ask questions, the same question, and everyone has the chance to answer. And these questions really do promote the opportunity for people to get below the surface and share. And the way that you have to do it, you go in a chronological order, but the leader always has to start. The leader always goes first. And the reason for that is the leader is really there to set the tone. We are not trying to advocate for oversharing or anything like that. But when you think about the types of answers you could give a pretty generic answer that maybe the people in the group may already know about you. We call that your PG-13 answer. Or we can go to the rated R answer. We could get a little bit more beneath the surface. And like I said, we're not trying to advocate for oversharing, but what we're doing here is we're really creating an environment of psychological safety. And it's allowing for every person that goes after you to really share and go there as well with their answers. And this is sometimes what's really needed. It's really needed for people to be able to feel that they have the safe space to go there and to speak and to be honest and to share so that they can feel heard and understood. So the leader always goes first, and everyone will follow answering the same question, and you'll continue to go until every question is answered. There's a little bit of a science though. As the leader, we want to make sure that your answer is under 3 minutes. There is a little bit of a science that for answers that go at above 3 minutes, you kind of start to lose that active listening. And if the leader goes and speaks under 3 minutes, everyone that follows will actually naturally just do the same length of time. So it's really interesting. Now, the questions, how do you create these questions? I'm going to go through a little bit of information here to teach you how. You're more than welcome to use these questions that we create, or you can go ahead and create your own if you feel that there might be something a little more impactful to your organization individually. But it's really important to make sure that they kind of fall in these 3 categories. We want to have questions that really give answers from the individual. Allow questions for people to show and get connected to themselves and to get known to one another on an individual level. Then we're going to ask questions that really connect people and share what their purpose is, for us to get to understand what the purpose is of the group and of the organization. And then questions that are really going to help us get towards that goal, those priorities as a team of where we're trying to go. So some great examples of questions that really help us get to know each other as individuals is, what gets you out of bed in the morning? What is your driving motivation and purpose? That's such a personal answer. And I'm sure we can think of things that we could assume that people would answer here, but it's really awesome to allow people the space to share things that maybe others don't know about them. And then also, what keeps you up at night? What are your greatest fears, anxieties, and stressors? A really great way to get to know someone on a deeper level. Then for the questions around shared purpose, what was the lowest moment of your career? And what did you learn from that in retrospect? And then what is the proudest moment of your career? And what did that teach you about what you want in the future? This is actually one of my favorite questions, because I think all of us can assume what someone's proudest moment is. Maybe it was a big promotion or a raise or a time where they had some real external recognition. But you'll learn so much about a person, because sometimes it's really interesting. You actually know what really motivates them. Sometimes it's something that their proudest moment was just when they were able to help another individual exceed. And it's just so fascinating to really understand someone on a deeper level of what really does drive and motivate them. Then for questions around goals, your teams, your priorities, addressing as a team, what are our greatest strengths and what are our weaknesses as a team, so that we can really start to understand, get feedback, and hopefully improve in those areas. Then as a leader, asking the question, where do you need to grow as a leader? Where do I need to grow as a leader in order to help the team achieve the results that we're trying to achieve? Really, really powerful questions here. But like I said, this is just a little bit of a format, and you can definitely feel free to create your own. So from all of this, from what we see here in this picture, this is really what it looks like to scale Compass. We at Insight Global, we Compass as individual teams, a leader in their direct reports. We Compass as an entire leadership organization. And then we also Compass cross-functionally with the other groups in the organizations. We even Compass with external partners. And what we've come to find is that the more you Compass, the more you scale these Compass conversations, you automatically see an improvement in psychological safety. It completely increases across the organization. And it really does create these amazing new ways of doing. And it allows for new ideas to be brought forth and to discover really new ways of doing. So it really is an extremely impactful result when you create psychological safety across your organization. So that is it. That is all I have. But I know we're going to let in for some answers for Q&A. And like I said, if anyone has any interest or wants to speak, personally, no, Katie will go ahead and share our information.
Thank you so much, Lex. That was some really awesome information. And I think everyone could take that back to their organizations and use it. And so I did just want to mention, unfortunately, our third panelist, Elham Shirazi, has had an emergency and was not able to be with us today. But there was a slide that I have with her that I did want to share before we jump into Q&A. And I think it's just important to kind of take a glance at the workplace trends that she pulled together. So just to get, I am not going to do her justice, but I did want to share these with you all. And so just some workplace trends. I know that these are taken from conversations with CEOs, HR leaders, hundreds of them. And so this is just kind of a look at what they're expecting for 2022 as far as workplace trends. And so most companies will adopt a hybrid or remote first approach. I think we're already seeing that happening, and that's just going to continue to happen. Support a strong digital mindset will support ongoing business continuity. Organizations will fight to attract and retain talent amidst this great resignation, or whatever you'd like to call it. But we already know that there's a lot of talent war going on, as we're calling it. Leaders will rely on employee input and feedback more than ever before. So this is exactly what Lex and Marilyn just said to us, is that leaders and organizations are going to have to really listen more to what their employees need, and support them more so than they may have in the past. Evolve, workplace benefits, company culture included, will evolve to better meet employee needs. And then workers will regain control over their careers, and they'll look to technology for support. And so I think most companies, if they're not already, they will be soon moving towards that technology and things that will support them moving forward into the future. So I wanted to show this slide and before we jump into Q&A. So I wanted to start our Q&A off with just a question for Marilyn. And so I will just jump in, but please, if you do have questions, put them in the chat box, but we'll open up the floor as well. So Marilyn, I'm going to start with you and ask, based on your knowledge and experience, what have been the most successful strategies for enhancing employee health and emotional well-being?
A great question, Katie. I have observed through our data too that we've analyzed that the move more challenges, the emotional well-being challenges, and the listening sessions have been especially powerful as strategies to implement. Now, these strategies look pretty straightforward on the surface. You just get people to move more. But the good thing is that you can create some of the connections that Lex talked about. You can have walking groups. You can have people coming together to share as they walk or run together. They can problem solve together. This is not a foreign thing in that we've heard about groups in the past that went on the golf course together, for example. But this is a way to promote connections, but also maybe giving people some incentives. I mean, of course, there are health benefits, but even if there are small tokens, those can enhance the strategies for effectiveness. With the emotional well-being strategies, just like we take a car in to get a tune-up, we just need to have an emotional well-being check-in. And so often we take that for granted. So if you are not looking to do a 30-day kind of challenge, it can be something as simple as having professionals in the organization just to do a 30-minute emotional well-being check-in. That has been something that has been highly effective. And then the third strategy that has been so effective is just to have the listening sessions, to pull people together who want to be together and who want to have that kind of environment to support and hear each other. We always will set up some ground rules around those listening sessions. And one is that you really don't have to speak if you don't want to. There is power to being an active listener as well. But all of these strategies just demonstrate that there is care and concern about two very strong dimensions of wellness, the physical aspects and the emotional aspects, as well as social connectedness.
Thank you so much, Marilyn. We've had a question pop up for Lex and to me directly. Have or could the Compass sessions be used on C-suite to help old school traditional leadership styles adapt to the flexibility demands of today's workforce?
Yes, absolutely. Compass sessions can be used across any level of leadership across the organization. We have even had Compass sessions with some of the groups that you would think would never open up. I'm talking engineers, truck drivers. We've had Compass sessions where individuals like this are crying on camera. And I think the thing to remember is that at the end of the day, we're all human beings, no matter what your level is, no matter what your exterior demeanor is, at the end of the day, everyone's a human and they're yearning for that connection and understanding. So yes, absolutely.
Awesome. Lex, I'm going to ask you another question. Let's see. What are tips to get people to open up during a connection exercise?
Yeah, really good question. So the way that we always do this, and we find it very helpful, is making sure that everyone's prepared. So before you go into a Compass session, really preparing them with what to expect, explaining that everyone's going to go around, answer the questions, keep within the time frame. But we also share the questions that we're going to ask so that they can have at least the weekend beforehand or a few days beforehand to really reflect and to think about their questions so that they're more thought-provoking versus just trying to answer on a whim. So I think those are probably the best tricks. You can also start with like an icebreaker exercise or something like that, but usually being prepared is the best.
Great tips right there. Marilyn, a question for you in the chat box. So it's possible that managers may not always be put in a position to talk about mental wellness or may not be accustomed or comfortable with it. And so we know a lot of the larger corporate companies may have in organizational resources that are available that leaders can push to their employees. But do you know of any resources that are available for smaller companies or small businesses to take advantage of if they don't already have that in existence?
Well, there are some resources online, and I know we created an internal document for leaders to utilize that just had some tips about, for example, this is Mental Health Awareness Month. How appropriate, huh? And with that awareness campaign, there are some strategies that by going to their websites that leaders can use just to help them to get comfortable with the topic. We don't like to push leaders in a place where they are uncomfortable, but I mean, there are opportunities for leaders to do some online learning, but also there can be the opportunities for the leaders to use external facilitators to come in and to provide learning sessions. For example, I've worked with organizations where they did pool a group of leaders, and we just spent time talking about how, first of all, let me understand this whole thing called mental or behavioral health or emotional wellness, what it is. And oftentimes I've heard leaders say, this is just something that we didn't talk about 15, 20 years ago. And so how do I get comfortable with it? And we talk about ways in which to get comfortable and walk through this journey with employees, but being willing to also know when it's time for you to call upon other resources. And if those resources are not internal, look for some external resources that may be of help. The most important thing is not to ignore the conversations that people want to talk about emotional well-being, and to look for the best way to educate oneself to the degree where you feel comfortable and there is some psychological safety talking about these topics.
Thank you, Marilyn. I'm going to open the floor and see if anyone has any burning questions for your organization specifically, or that anything top of mind that might be questions or anything that you'd like to ask and get an opinion on from our two experts here.
I'll ask one. This is Denise Starling with Livable Buckhead. We've been through, this is for Lex. So we've been through the Compass session and absolutely loved it. And I'm curious sort of how long do you see that it really takes to really truly make change in the organization, to truly implement everything you come up with from one of the retreats?
So from just seeing any sort of change from a Compass session or like actual culture change throughout an organization?
Sort of both.
Yeah, so I think from after a Compass session, you can definitely see some immediate change. You'll just notice that people feel open and comfortable to bring their own ideas, and they have a better understanding of one another. And there's just this level of safety where people feel like they can bring their own thoughts and ideas to the table and not necessarily feel judged. So I think that's immediate. But when you're looking at overall culture change, like we went through this snake slide, it can kind of range anywhere for full change from about 3 to 5 years. But you got to celebrate your little wins, right? There are small wins that happen throughout that time frame that you really have to celebrate and learn from those experiences and then scale. So definitely have to celebrate the little wins.
And this is kind of a question for both of you. Do you think the stigma of improving this and focusing on employees and their health and their well-being, and because of all these influencing factors, do you think that the stigma of helping employees personally on that mental health level and connecting on a deeper level, do you think that has kind of decreased because of everything that's happened over the past few years? Marilyn?
I have been in this field for a long time, and I won't date myself by giving specific years, but I have seen a lot of changes in the world of mental health and emotional well-being. Now is the first time where I am starting to see such openness to talk about mental health and emotional well-being. Yes, stigma still does exist, but there are a couple of trends that I observe. One, I am definitely seeing that there are some generational differences, and that younger employees really want to talk about how they're feeling and what's going on in their mental health worlds. This is starting even earlier with high school groups where they're talking about, and these are going to be individuals that come to the work world, but they are creating all types of social media forums that will actually talk about mental health and wellness in various formats. So we now have more young people, adolescents, who are going to their parents saying, you know, I want counseling. You know, it's a popular thing for me. And sometimes they're actually pulling the parents in as well. And so in that regard, they are helping to decrease the stigma. While we still have this whole concern about this discussion, it has definitely shifted. And it's been a shift that I certainly embrace and hope that we will continue along these same lines. I don't think we'll ever go back to where we were 10, 15 years ago about these topics. You know, if you look even at the media, you hear so many references now to mental health and mental well-being. I actually did an exercise one night saying, for the next 2 hours as I'm watching TV, I'm going to count the number of times I hear references to mental health or emotional well-being. And I had to stop counting because they were so plentiful. So yes, we are definitely seeing more people who have indicated that they never thought they would be talking about these issues or certainly seeking help now coming in for help. So changes have definitely occurred in a positive direction as it relates to stigma. And I'll
Lex, did
turn
you
it
wanna
over
add
to
anything?
Lex.
If you wanted to add anything, that was a great answer.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. I don't have anything to add, but I do completely agree.
Great. Well, I'll ask one more question. We haven't had any more, I don't think, come through the chat box. But again, feel free to chime in if you do have a question that comes up. But one last question for Lex is, why should we invest the time in getting connected when we're already so strapped for time with the work that we have just on our plates already?
Yeah, really good question. I think because it makes the work that you do together so much better. And yes, you have to realize that. You have to definitely kind of shift the thinking of your time orientation, but it really helps on so many facets. It makes you feel more fulfilled when you're in the workplace. It makes the work that you're doing together better. It helps overcome communication barriers. It takes those relationships that are so imperative in the workplace to the next level. And it can really help you find better solutions of what you're doing. So it's almost like if you put the time in on the front end, the work that you actually do is better and easier and more efficient. So that's, I think, the really big key to remember.
That's so true. And I think something that everyone has to keep in mind, and us like feeling just more connected will make our work even more impactful. So I completely agree. And we just have about 5 minutes left, and Elham has actually been able to join us. So Elham, we are just about to end, but if you want to just say a couple words, I was just about to tell everyone that it is important to keep all of these things in mind. Of course, I think it's top of mind for everyone right now. And as far as telework and hybrid work, it's all impacting each other. And one thing that we know to be true is having guidelines and these systems and structures in place, especially around hybrid work and what the expectations are for employees, is going to be crucially important as organizations and businesses start sending employees back into the office. So all of our great panelists and Livable Buckhead, we can help you and employers and businesses with all of these things. And Lex, I'm going to put up our panelists' contact information so you can all see that and grab their contact information. And again, you can reach out to each of them to just to get advice, to work with them directly, and to help your organization. So just wanted to put this up there.